Steve, do we have you?
Yes, here I am.
Yeah, great. 40 years after their first album, Free Fall, the original lineup of the Dixie Dregs have reunited for their U.S. tour. Dawn of the Dregs. Steve Morse, guitarist and founding member of the band, is on the air with me now. Steve, welcome to the Test of Time.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for talking about music like this on the air.
Well, we got a lot of fans here, so I'm sure you're going to be well received when you come to Santa Cruz. When I first heard about the Dregs reunion tour, it was July of last year, and the band was only scheduled for 4 dates on the East Coast, so I was really thrilled that you guys had extended the tour out here and to California. How did the reunion tour idea form, and how difficult was it to gather the original members?
Oh, actually, I'm sort of the third-party hearsay guy on all that, because I'm the one that said we need to get together and play before we discuss any more, and that's what we did last January, and I mean a year ago, January. And when we got together and played, it was just like everybody had the same personalities, and everybody could play the tunes from Free Fall with no problem. And I was impressed, and it was fun. So I said, "All right, let's do it." The idea had already been hatched by Andy West, Rod Morgenstein, and our manager Frank Solomon, and they are the ones that got in touch with everybody. And I guess in our band, Andy does a lot of the organization, and Rod is sort of like the all-around sensible one. He's like the Supreme Court judge. If there's something that needs to be decided that's controversial, and I'm mostly stuffing musical ideas into the mix.
Mm-hmm. Will the band be focusing mostly on the music from the Capricorn era?
Well, yeah, I'd say most of it is. However, we've got some stuff from, even the last of our 6 consecutive albums, the industry standard album, and Dregs of the Earth, and Night of the Living Dregs. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a nice mix of stuff. So, and what that meant for Steve Morse, our keyboard player, is that he had to learn a few things that he's never played before. Mm-hmm. However, during the time he was with us, we did a lot of the material that showed up on the first 3 albums, and we just simply had a surplus of material when we started the Free Fall album.
Well, how did the band prepare for the tour? Did you try to replicate the material, or did you improvise a lot?
I think everybody just listened to the record and remembered, the kind of like the finger memory of their parts, and tried to reconcile those two things. Then the next thing was, practicing, making some kind of a practice arrangement, whether it be a loop or a practice tape or something, in order to get comfortable with soloing sections. Mm-hmm. And with Steve Morse, I wrote some things as MIDI files, and then converted those to notation through a computer program. And then I had some photocopies of things that I sent as email JPEGs. And with all those things put together, we, everybody arrived at their parts. And then at rehearsal, we had 6 days of rehearsal, consecutive days in Florida. And, that was just nonstop. No, it's not A flat, it's an A natural, then those kind of things, just getting picky over parts.
Mm-hmm. And the tour started out around your original stomping grounds. How's the reception been?
Well, very generous. People were very generous. They talk about preaching to the choir. Basically, no one's going to shell out big bucks for a ticket to something that they don't want to see.
Right.
So, if we wanted to go by the reaction, we should have just, we could have just practiced one time and played the gig, and they would have seemed happy. However, with the Dregs, there's never a moment, after a show where there's not a debriefing of some kind. and the next sound check includes those, little drill sections. And basically, I try to bring up 2 or 3 little things every sound check, every day, to work on, and after the show, we'll talk about stuff too. And some bands don't like to do that; they think it vibes down the band or whatever. But with the Dregs, it's just a tradition. We do it, try to make things better all the time.
Well, you've also had a few special guests along the way. How fun has that been to add on variations of the band?
Well, it's great because it's people that we've come to know during our time as the Dregs, or people that were affiliated somehow with the Dregs family. So it's wonderful, and I think the audience likes that just seeing somebody struggle with, for instance, borrowing one of my guitars and plugging it into my amp on a song that they're not maybe so familiar with, rather than seeing a polished presentation that's the same every night, You guys even have some of the original road crew returning as well. Oh, yeah. In fact, we would have even had the same sound man, Dave Colvin, Dop, we call him. He tragically died of natural causes before the rehearsal started. But somehow Jeff found the guy that owned the sound system that we rented the first time we brought our own production, and he was a friend of the band and is now a sound man, Gary Sharp. So we ended up with another, member of the Dregs business family taking his place.
Cool. I read that you had one of your acoustic guitars stolen in D.C. Have you had any luck with its return?
Yes. There's a line of somebody, I think it's possible they found out how difficult it is to get rid of a guitar that's that recognizable, and that it's handmade and unique in every way. So we're offering some kind of finder's fee if somebody could forward it to us, and somebody is now doing that.
Wow. Well, it'll be nice to have, you've had that guitar for 30 years, so I'm sure it means a lot to you. And has this ever happened to you before? And how'd you move past it? Did it bother you for the rest of the tour so far?
Yes, it's happened before, and actually many times. The steel guitar I used on Motown got stolen when we were at the Southeast Music Hall in Atlanta many years ago. The guitar I used for Punk Sandwich, it got stolen right before then. And then we've had basses, other guitars, amps, microphones.
Wow.
It's every band that's been around ends up being vulnerable at the load in and load out, where the stuff is being prepared on the stage and loaded at the truck, and they're depending on helpers to transport it from point A to point B.
If you're just tuning in to the Test of Time, I'd like to let everybody know I'm speaking with Steve Morse, guitarist and founding member of the eclectic genre-bending band, the Dixie Dregs. The original band members will be performing at the Rio Theater in Santa Cruz April 17th. Showtime is at 7:30 p.m. Steve, what were you listening to as a teenager, and who inspired you to pick up the guitar?
Wow, big questions. Well, as a teenager, that's a few years after I picked up the guitar, but at that point, it was gung-ho. Anything heavy. For instance, Hendrix, Cream, Jeff Beck, Allman Brothers. It was just, rock and roll basically was my main interest. But I remember, hearing people playing folk guitar, with pretty adept things going on. and even the guitarist in Jefferson Airplane, Yorma, was doing some of that. I remember from hearing him in the live concert. So I loved the guitar as a versatile instrument. And the thing that inspired me to pick it up, I think, was having a musical instrument that I really wasn't inspired by, which was the clarinet. You have brothers in a family, and you get the hand-me-downs. Well, my older brother played clarinet, so it was basically a done deal. Oh. The parents have some kind of secret communication with the band director, and he says, "Oh, you look like you should play clarinet." And he knows darn well that my parents own a clarinet. Uh-huh. So that was a done deal. But I didn't like it. And when I heard the guitar with the rhythm that, for instance, that John Lennon did, and the cool little flourishes that George Harrison did, and the session guys on the Beach Boys records did, mm-hmm. And then I also heard a guy, when I was a kid waiting in line at a carnival, I heard a guy that was operating the carnival ride sitting with a gut string guitar, just finger picking, not quite Travis style, but close to that, but a kind of a polyphonic version of a folk tune. I think it was Freight Train. And I thought that was so cool that he could make a complete sounding tune with that instrument. And so all that put together made me think that I should make a switch mm-hmm. from clarinet.
It's hard to imagine you playing the clarinet, I think.
Well, it was hard. I think my parents were glad. They didn't like the volume of the guitar, but they mm-hmm. probably didn't like the sound of the clarinet.
Right. Yeah.
The way I played it. My brother was good, though.
Uh-huh. Without Capricorn filing for bankruptcy in October of '79, and followed by the death of the road manager, Twiggs Linden, who played a pretty big role in the Dregs' recruitment, do you think the Dregs would have stayed together longer?
There's a lot of forces at work. First of all, back then there was no hope for expanding our market because the booking agents told us, you're that's it. You're not going to ever get outside the U.S. because you haven't sold enough records. You don't have vocals. You don't have this. You don't have that. And, of course, we found out decades later that the market, at least decades later, was huge. Mm-hmm. And, yes, we could have had enough gigs to survive and maybe even flourish. But at the time, we did our circuit and pretty much burned it out. And the choice was, do we want to, does everybody want to struggle their whole life, to make the rent? And, we had a lot of different forces at work, that were tearing away at the band. And with some groups, there is a limited lifespan. And I think with something like that, young guys, maybe want to reach out for something more exciting and with bigger growth potential than we could offer. There was a lot going on, and there's no blame. It just was, we kind of, like I said, used up our little 5-minute window of opportunity, and then here we are 40 years later finding out that there's a lot of opportunity for bands that sound like they don't belong. Mm-hmm. And back then there was no welcome for bands that didn't belong. Hmm. Having said that, there was a lot more gigs for all bands at the time. Right. And as a result, we could open up a market by calling up a club and saying, "Hey, we'll play for the door." Mm-hmm. And the guy says, "Sure, I'll take half the door." And I said, "No, we'll play for the door." I said, "You're right, you'll play for half the door." Okay. And so that's how we started in almost every place.
Mm-hmm. But you guys had a lot of pressure from Arista, your next label, to produce more pop-oriented songs. Did you feel like what the Dregs stood for was being asked to be compromised at all?
Well, one of the big problems I had with Arista was them literally saying to me when I went to Manhattan and sitting in the office, just like a fish out of water. And Clive Davis saying, no, we're not going to honor the contract. You're not going to get that production budget. And you're going to do it our way, pretty much. I said, well, where do I go to get out of this deal? Mm-hmm. He said, I'll have the legal department draw it up immediately. And that was kind of like the beginning of the end. And, the seamy side of every business has a seamy side, okay? And I learned that later on that it's not easy to do anything. And as a very young guy at the time, I was a little bit idealistic. I thought when people said something that they would do it. And boy, oh boy, that's one that, all musicians need to, they need to learn to be that way, but they need to learn to never expect it from anybody else.
Yeah. I had a realization like that too when I got into the professional world, that not everybody had the same work ethics as my dad. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I was raised with the Leave It to Beaver family. Mm-hmm. That nothing bad's going to happen. And then you get out there in the world and it's nothing but broken promises.
Mm-hmm. What started out as a commitment to a few shows with Deep Purple has turned into 23 years. What is it about the band and the music of Deep Purple that has retained your attention for so long?
Wow. Well, it's 24 years of, I think, just fun music. They give me plenty of room and plenty of room to hang myself if I want to. But they let me do my own thing. Mm-hmm. And since I was in cover bands for so much of my early life, I approach it as what would I, if I was a listener, what would I want to hear? Mm-hmm. And what can I do to make it most like that? So when I do the legacy material, that's the way I approach it. And again, for those people that are coming night after night in a lot of places, I have to say, well, I can't do the same solos every night. I don't want to copy the exact things from the record. So I'll do a little nod toward this or that Ritchie Blackmore did, but I'm also going to do my own thing too. Mm-hmm. It's a fine line, and not everyone's going to love whichever way you decide. But it's made it a comfortable place for me to be, and the band is just really solid, hardworking, easy to play with, gifted musicians. So it's a great gig.
Was it difficult to switch gears from the Purple's hard-driving rock to the intricate time signatures of the Dixie Dregs again? Start up again with the Dregs?
No. I see them as being pretty similar in a way. The bass and drum parts may be more straight ahead, but with ever since I've been in the band, we've had some challenging parts for guitar and organ, and I like that, and I like slipping as much of that in to the writing as possible. And and some people fight me on it, and the band wins because it's I'm the new guy after 24 years. But basically what I do is I bombard them with ideas. And here's what I think will work. You don't like that? Or what about this? I think this will work. Don't like that? What about this? I know this will work. Come on, try it. But yeah, everybody likes it. So, and that's the way it goes with my contributions. I don't want to impose my will, but what I do want to do is introduce something that may not have been thought of that would work with the band, and maybe a kind of surprisingly progressive little riff or whatever.
Well, John Lord had some similar rock and classical sensibilities as you. Can you speak a little bit about playing with him for the first time? I know it was only a few years you played with him before he left Deep Purple. What was that like?
It was great. The first time we got together, we were at the venue where we were going to have the first concert. The venue was a little indoor coliseum with it was sold out, and so no pressure at all. And I was meeting the guys for the first time. I had met Roger, of course, but because Roger lived in America. But the other guys, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And we were all, everybody was on an instrument. We were ready to play. So,
wow.
Somebody just, like I just play a riff, just checking the sound. John Lord spits it right back. And I said, wow, that guy's got great ears. So I do that again with something else. He brings it back and then adds another part to it. I bring it back to him with the same part. And he's pleased that I can hear what he's doing. And I'm extremely pleased that he can hear and sort of extrapolate on what I'm doing. And it went from there into this hour-long jam. And everybody was just happy, smiling. Mm-hmm. And that's, for an old-school guy like me, and old-school guys like them, we all grew up with the same influences. Mm-hmm. Even though we're separated by the ocean.
Right. Well, I love it when that synchronicity happens. It must feel really, really good, especially playing music.
It was very natural chemistry, and surprisingly so. I was prepared for it to go either way. These guys suck. They're living off their name. There's no way I'm doing this. Was a possibility in my mind because I didn't know them. I hadn't heard them play live. I just had recordings of their records. Mm-hmm. So it was really nice to just get in that big, comfortable armchair that is Deep Purple.
Mm-hmm. You have a pretty busy schedule between touring with Deep Purple, guesting on various albums, many projects of your own, and now the resurrection of the Dixie Dregs. How do you stay centered? I know you have a little bit of time off right now, but, how do you keep yourself together when you're so busy?
Well, always thinking about, what do I need to do to make the next thing the best it can be? Just that kind of, the same things that our dads did mm-hmm. at their jobs that made them, want to do their best. It really helps if you, as a musician, if you think about everything you do is directed towards the people that are buying the tickets or even in some cases, amazingly enough, buying the albums. It's to those people that you owe, that last nth degree of effort. Mm-hmm. I think every musician can put in 95%, but the last extra few percent that puts something over the top, it requires digging in, when you're mm-hmm. tired and you finish a gig and, you had 3 hours sleep the night before and just drove 500 miles. Well, instead of going to bed when you got 4 hours to sleep, you've got to sometimes pull out the guitar and figure out what did I do wrong in this riff that made it feel so out of time, and solve these little problems each day. So that's what keeps me centered is concentrating on thinking about the listener. And yeah, in a sense, music first. It's music first, but I think I personify that a little bit. I actually think about somebody going through the trouble of getting a babysitter and finding a parking space and waiting in line and paying a ridiculous price for a ticket and then paying an even more ridiculous price for a T-shirt. I appreciate all that. So mm-hmm. I think about, look at all the crap that person went through mm-hmm. to be at the show. I really need to give it everything I got.
Right. Well, you certainly have, like I do. I hear that you have a lot of your dad's sensibilities in providing a service, and that's a beautiful thing. Not everybody can approach their job that way, and I think it helps that you really love what you're doing, and you want to do the best that you can for people.
Sure does to love what you're doing. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, Steve, it's been a real honor speaking with you, and I've been a huge fan of the Dixie Dregs since eons ago since you guys first started. And thank you so much for calling in. And I'm so looking forward to the Dixie Dregs upcoming show. Last time I saw you guys was in New Orleans in December of 1979, and I'm just so excited that you guys will be here playing at the Rio Theater in April 17th at 7:30. So thank you very much, and look so forward to your show.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for promoting live music. And anybody out there want to see the band, it's the best time to check it out. It's a real Wayback Machine, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited. And are you guys going to be out? You guys going to be doing signings after the show, you think?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the schedule will bring, or how many miles we have to go. I still haven't got the book yet, but you know, that's up to, a lot of it's up to the venue too.
Right.
If they want to clear their security people out, they will generally clear the room. And if it's a place where it serves alcohol, you know, they will not want to clear the room.
Sure.
So,
Right. Exactly.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, look forward to seeing you in April, and safe journeys along the way. And we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Steve. Bye.